Frasier's imaginary friend is a really strong start to the 5th season of Frasier. This is directed by David Lee. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it picks up pretty much where the last episode left off, which is quite interesting because that didn't really feel like a cliffhanger. I didn't really, part of me kind of wanted to know how he'd get out of that situation. He said he was going to Mexico just to date this woman. But at the same time, it felt like it didn't need to be continued, but I'm glad that it was because this is a great episode. He ends up going to Mexico and manages to get a seat next to the woman he was hoping to go with. She finds out what he did, buying a ticket just to, hopefully sleep with her, basically. And she's creeped out by that, so she ends up moving to a different seat. And ultimately, Frasier ends up sitting next to this model called Kelly Easterbrook. She's played by Sela Ward. And actually, they hit it off. They get on really well. We cut to them in bed together. And then we're very briefly at KCL. And then Frasier, back from Mexico, is in the apartment. Niles has come over. We have this great scene where Eddie is on the chair and Martin's doing his exercises on the floor. Very entertaining. Frasier says that actually he did hook up with somebody and everybody was surprised he went to Mexico, bearing in mind they thought he went to the airport to pick somebody up. So it's a very bizarre situation all around. And then to make it even stranger for everybody, Frasier is claiming he slept with this model. And he has to be discreet because this model is currently going through a breakup with a star football player. As much as I love Frasier, the person, I feel like if I were Niles or Martin or Daphne in that situation, I definitely would probably struggle to believe him. It seems quite far-fetched. Why would he make it up? Well, they don't necessarily have a reason for that, but I don't think they're completely unreasonable to not believe him. And Frasier is then down at Cafe Nervosa. He gets a phone call from Kelly. She's able to meet him for dinner in Seattle. And of course, as soon as he hangs up the phone, everybody arrives. And again, they don't believe him. And he says that he got dinner reservations and they decide to go and follow him. And unfortunately, Kelly had to cancel at the last minute, so Frasier's eating dinner on his own. And this doesn't really help matters. Because, of course, all they see is Frasier eating by himself. They gather around him. Martin says, "I love you, it's okay." And it's very frustrating as a viewer. Because I am so desperate for them to learn the truth. There's nothing worse. Well, there might be some things that are worse. But one of the most annoying things is when you're telling the truth and people don't believe you. So frustrating. And this is, of course, what we have here. And I really needed the episode to go in a certain direction. And I'll talk more about that when we get there. But that scene I thought was sweet. Everybody there for Frasier. Clearly they think he's going through some kind of mental breakdown. And they're there to support him, which is really lovely. But it's really frustrating because we know that Kelly just had to cancel last minute. Frasier did have dinner plans with her. And then they end up meeting again. And Kelly makes it up to him with a fabulous night as they had their first night. And unfortunately, in the morning, she's leaving to go study somewhere for 2 months. And they're in bed together the following morning. Frasier decides to take a photo of her while she's sleeping. And this is obviously his way to try and prove that she's there. This episode would have played out very differently in the digital age. But he takes this photo of her, and obviously the sound of the camera wakes her up. And quite rightly, I don't think she overreacted when she basically yelled at Frasier to get out of the room so she could get dressed and leave, because he took a picture of her. Not only is that creepy in itself, but bearing in mind that she does have a career in the public eye and this kind of thing is, well, she assumed he was going to sell it to the press or something, and I don't blame her for acting the way she did. And again, she storms out. Frasier is looking rather dishevelled in his robe. He's flustered. He's irritated at the situation. It's his fault, obviously, but he doesn't want her to leave. And yet again, just as Daphne, Niles and Martin come up in the elevator, she's gone down the stairs because she didn't want to wait for the elevator, even though clearly it was a matter of seconds away and she probably would have been able to see that. But nevertheless, she goes down the stairs. And again, Frasier is really annoyed that once again they have missed her. They still think he is a liar. And then she comes back. And I was so, so happy this is the direction it took, because she comes in the room and she gets the camera and rips the film out. Again, would have been very different in the digital age, which is actually a pretty sensible thing to do, actually destroy the evidence, if you like. And just the look on everybody else's faces when they saw her and realised that Frasier wasn't having a breakdown and he was telling the truth was just absolutely fantastic. And it was not immediately clear how Frasier was going to respond. And I really enjoyed this because he just kind of stands up, plumps up the sofa pillow because he'd previously flopped down on it in defeat. And then he just said, "What do you think of me now?" With a little grin on his face while he's wearing his robe and his chest exposed. And he definitely feels very good about himself in that moment. And I thought it was a really, really, really enjoyable moment. And then the ending is just beautiful because Frasier is in bed and he's clearly quite asleep, probably dreaming of Kelly. And we see that actually Eddie is asleep in his arms. And what I love about this in particular is that Eddie gives him a kiss on the mouth. And I know people say don't let dogs kiss you on the mouth, but I'll be honest, I always did with my dog. And then Frasier doesn't push him away. He has a moment of, oh my goodness, that's Eddie. But then he just kind of leans into it. And it's really affectionate and really sweet and lovely. And it's a fun, chaotic, unpredictable start to season 6. As I said, I didn't watch the previous episode feeling like it was a cliffhanger. I didn't think I absolutely need to know what happens next. But at the same time, I'm glad they continued it because it's brilliant. Really solid episode. Frasier's Imaginary Friend is a really brilliant episode of Frasier.